Man, I've worked on a lot of engines. I've never seen anything like this. I gotta show you this. This is crazy. Hey there, welcome to Farmcraft. I've got a surprise in this truck. So what we have here is a Johnson Outboard. It's a Seahorse 5 horsepower motor. And this was purchased brand new by my grandfather in the 50s. So this is a 2-stroke. You have to mix the fuel. It's got 1 cylinder and 5 horsepower. And hopefully I'm not going to find anything here that I can't fix or get parts for. The story on it is the thing will not pull, and hopefully, I can't do this with just one hand, but it will not pull. Hopefully the engine isn't seized and it's the starter mechanism that's broken. As far as I can tell, this thing has not run. I'm certain it has not run in 40 years. It may not, I'm 48 years old. It may not have run since I've been alive. It has been a very long time. This is the fuel cap. That's seized up. That won't come off. I'm gonna need a pipe wrench to get that off. This is, you can see you can change the leanness or richness of your burn with that knob, and this is what you push to prime. This is your throttle, stop, slow, start, and then fast. And it has a clutch on it, so this is to put it in neutral. And then when you want it to engage the prop, you throw it like that. Let me see what else. It has a thing over here that I think is just a fuel shutoff. I'm not sure what that is, but it's a hard stop there, but it'll keep turning left to there. And then the lower unit looks like it probably has a leak because this is pretty oily. So this motor has been sitting in my father's garage for as long as I can remember, and I've never seen it run. I've always wanted to see it run. That's probably when I was 5 years old is my earliest memory of this. I'm excited. I want to see this thing run. Let's pull this cover off and see what we can see regarding this pull cord. Kind of funny, old flathead screws. Guarantee you nowadays these would be bolts. I mean, they're not screws actually. I guess they're bolts, but they're not hex bolts. Oh. Ooh. The engine is not locked up. Check that out. Let me get this gas cap off. Look. Crusty. Man. It's varnish. So trying to show you down in that tank, all that flaky stuff down there is probably dried fuel and rust. There you go. Slightly better view. And the cap is all covered with schmutz. Let me show you this starter mechanism. The cable right here looks like it's going down underneath where it doesn't belong. I think it's supposed to be up on this upper wheel. You can actually see that it's rope in there. This was like a cloth rope with a central cable core, and obviously that rope would have long since broken if it wasn't for the steel. So the mechanism is not locked up. I can roll it and I can pull it until it gets to that cable jam. So hopefully if I loosen this screw, I will be able to get that out of there and not have everything go springing sproinging everywhere. We don't need any of that. Come on. Man, that thing is on there. This actually, I think, goes all the way through to this cap nut here. I think that's what you call that. Whatever. Tappy tap tap. There we go. Alright, so that loosened up. Now, I don't want it to come springing on me. I know a bunch of you probably do. You want to see exactly that. Yep, the cable was wrapped in underneath where it did not belong. Tighten that back down. Look at that. There you can see the rope that was supposed to be on it. That cable's just too thin. I suspect someone pulled to start it, and when it rolled back up, that thin cable was able to get up underneath where it didn't belong. When I pull this and these things come out, they are going to engage on these teeth. And these teeth are actually angled. So, like, if you go from one to the next, you hit it. But if you go the opposite direction, you would not hit it. So obviously this is the direction that it's meant. So it engages, those things hit, and then that transfers the power of your pull into this rotational power of spinning the motor. Oh-ho! You see what I see? 2 spark plugs. That would be a 2-cylinder engine. So let's do a little walk around here. You can see our 2 plugs. So this is the head. Go to this side. You can see that's where the cylinders are. And down here is the crankcase. And it's obviously in line with the central shaft, which is your crankshaft. So the pistons are transferring power into the shaft there. Back on the other side, this is our intake, and this is our carburetor. It's a funny looking carburetor to me, but it's old, and I'm not used to working on 2-strokes, so maybe it's not funny looking, it's just funny to me. Up inside there is going to be the magneto that's going to generate power, send electricity to the spark plugs. Yeah, this is the fuel shutoff valve there. That's the out of the fuel tank and into the carburetor. That's probably the air intake right there. Is there no air filter on this thing? That's crazy. I must say I'm really kind of tempted to spray some starting fluid into the intake and see if it'll fire. I bet you it would, because I found a broken starter cable. That's probably why this thing was set aside and not used anymore. Hopefully the engine was in good working condition, and that's what I was told when it broke. Now maybe it wouldn't run and they were pulling and pulling and pulling on the starter until it broke and then they gave up. So you never know. But if I'm lucky, this thing will run. What I don't want to do right now, though, is start it up and pull whatever junk is in this carburetor or in these fuel lines into it and just make things worse. I really want to open up the carb and take a look at that before I mess something up. So let's take that off. I lied. First I'm going to take these spark plugs out and just get a look at them. Oh, man. Wow. The end of the plug isn't wet, but the threads are wet, which I assume is old oil from the gas mix. Yeah, it seems like it's oil. That's good. That means I probably don't have a bunch of rust inside my cylinders. Plug is tucked up under here. I can't get a socket on it. That's why I'm using this wrench. Man. These plugs are different. And I am willing to bet that they are supposed to be the same. I don't think Johnson would make this with a different plug in each cylinder. See a fair amount of carbon on the top of the pistons. Makes me want to take the head off and look at them, but I don't think... Let's look at this carburetor. And, you know, if it's not running great, well, then we'll have to dig further. But who knows? I might go through the carburetor and this thing might run. From what I can see, there's only 2 things holding this carb on. And it's this nut, which is on a stud. You can see the gasket right there. And then this flathead bolt. That is the primer pump, which is up here on top. And when you spin it, it makes it more lean and rich. So it is moving a jet right there. Looks like something else is holding it. Oh yeah, another fuel line. Shockingly, my metric wrenches aren't the right size. You believe that? I'm predicting this is going to be a little fiddly to get back together. Man, how long are those threads? Seems like when they give you a nut that you can't really get too easily, they make the threads twice as long, just for fun. Just to give you a little challenge. Got that off. And I've got one more attachment. That is our throttle. Maybe I'll see if I have a cotter pin that could take the place of that when we put it back on. So let's take this carb over to the bench. Okay, so this was our fuel in. So I am betting you that that will be where you would drain the bowl, but I doubt anything's going to come out. Nada. Like the spark plugs, there's a little bit of oil on the threads. I think this being a two-stroke is probably going to help a lot. This is the only potential air intake that I see. It pushed itself up for some reason. Why did it do that? Alright, so that pin just goes in there, and that's a cool little mechanism. So this pin allows this to go up and down when you're pumping, but then when you twist, that twist gets transferred to this, which is the jet. So that is metering fuel. There you go. Nice little needle valve there. And here's our float. I gotta show you this. This is crazy. I must say I've never seen an actual cork float, and there's like this retention thing, so the needle is through the cork, that's cork, and they just put this piece of wire and a screw down in there to hold that needle in place. Apparently that's how these were manufactured, but to me that looks like a redneck cobbled together, like, I'm gonna make my own float. Don't ever underestimate a redneck, man. They can do lots of stuff. Here, can you see down the bottom of that bowl? It doesn't look bueno. I'd really like to clean that out. And I could just spray some carb cleaner, but it'd be nice to get this float out of here. Speaking of rednecks, this is how I could kind of test the needle. When this comes up, it should cut off the fuel flow. Well, so that means if I blow air into this and then lift that, it should block the air. It actually seems to be working quite well. Right down in here there's a fine screen, and I'm happy to say it looks pretty clean. I think it's attached to this gasket, which is dry and cracked. I'll see if I can find a rebuild kit for one of these, but for now I'm going to leave that as it is. It just looks like junk in there. Let's see if I can blow that out. Schmutz. Well, that one communicates with that. This one here communicates, I can see into the bowl now. So that is how our fuel is getting from the bowl to the carburetor, so that is very critical. So this is carb cleaner. Carb cleaner feels real good and cuts, by the way. Unfortunately, I have to take this float out. In spite of trying to clean it, there's still just, I can see tons of gunk in the bottom of the bowl, and I can't effectively clean it like it is. So we're going to take this float out. So it looks to me like I need to take this screw out, which is barely in there. Ay, ay, ay. Almost more just sitting there than anything. Then I need to get this piece of wire. It's in a groove on the needle, so I can't get the needle out with that wire there. Trying to be gentle so I don't damage the cork. And push that wire out of the way. Okay. There's that piece of wire. Now I should be able to push this. Oh wow, there it goes. It's coming right out. So it comes down like that. And now there's your cork. Wow. It really is just a cork. It's not even square. Look at that. You see this edge is not even parallel with that edge. They just lop off a piece of cork and stick a needle down the center. That's absurd. That shouldn't work. So I think you can see here, this little piece of wire is kind of springy, and it goes through that groove right there. So once this gets pushed through the cork, and then that wire goes over that, this is trapped and it's not able to move. So the cork, it looks like they put some kind of enamel coating or something on it, which protects it from the fuel. So this end of the needle is tapered, and that meets with the seat that is up inside here, and we'll look more at that later. In modern carburetors, both the needle and the seat are easily replaceable. In this carburetor, the seat is integral to this carburetor housing, which can be a problem, because you can't just replace the seat if it's leaking. Most of the gaskets I've come across, I can either easily replace or they don't look too bad. These little screws, they had these things on there that look like they were rubber, and now they're all dry and cracking up. Well, they go on these little bolts here. So I could either use some fuel resistant gasket maker like this, or I have a set of O-rings. This O-ring goes on there quite well. And then once you screw it in, the O-ring kind of flattens out, acts, almost exactly like the gasket would have. I somehow failed to film cleaning out the bowl, but you can see that it turned out looking really good. Cork goes in first. Needle falls right into place. There we go. As I'm putting this thing back together, some things need lube, and I'm just using 2-cycle engine oil because that's what's going to end up all over it anyway. Do it this way. Now we can put this back on. So a trick to not cross-thread screws, I just did right there. I wasn't sure if it was threading right. Go backwards with a little bit of downward pressure until you feel it pop like that. Here, I'll do it again. Pop. So the thread's just aligned, so you know it's ready to thread right now. So if you're ever in doubt, that's the thing to do. Don't just say, oh, maybe it's just not threaded great and it's a little tight, because you cross-thread it and you really screw things up. Now, if you're just threading into a nut, no big deal. You get a different nut and bolt. But if I cross-thread into this carburetor body, which is what I would be doing, you just cause yourself a whole bunch of headache. This is probably a bad idea, but I'm going to do it anyway. I've got the carburetor off. There's no chance of anything from the fuel tank or anything, the fuel lines, getting in there. So if I put the spark plugs in and hit this with a little bit of ether, it might fire. The only issue is there wouldn't be any lubrication going with that. It wouldn't run very long. So I'm going to put a little 2-cycle engine oil in each cylinder and turn it over by hand a little bit. Then I'm going to see if we can make it fire. That'd be exciting. So this is 2-cycle engine oil, just a little bit. I'm going to pull by hand. Alright, so that oil should be well distributed. And our pistons should be well lubricated. Tell me if any oil comes out of there. I think my starter cable just screwed up again. Alright, I got the plugs back in. I'm going to use a drill on top to spin it. Here's some starting fluid. Let's see what happens. Nothing. I would have expected more than that. Whole lot of nada. Wonder if I'm not getting spark. So small engine troubleshooting, you need three things for it to run. You need compression, you need fuel, and you need spark. Well, I just sprayed it with fuel, so let's see if we're getting spark. I'm gonna hold this lower plug against the block. You should be able to see a spark right there at the gap. Hopefully this isn't gonna shock the heck out of me. Oh yeah, I could see both of them sparking actually. So we've got spark. Good, good. So you know, I said we got spark good, but that might not be good because I sprayed starting fluid in there with spark. It should have fired. Unless maybe something's clogged and the starting fluid didn't actually get to the cylinders. That's a possibility. But this is a compression test kit. Now, not everyone's going to have one of these, but they're not terribly expensive. If you do some work on small engines, I recommend you get one. Basically what you do, you've got a couple different sizes and adapters for different size spark plugs. This is the one for this plug. I'm going to plug these together and then turn it over, and this is going to read the level of compression that I'm getting in each cylinder. And you don't have to crank these down real tight. 66. If I do it faster, I get up to 76. Yeah, I don't know what that means. I don't know what the expected compression on this engine is. But we have another cylinder. If they're the same, they're probably fine. Now that one went up to 84. So 76 and 84. They are pretty close. So I've got spark, I've got at least some compression. So what's going on here? I've got one more thing to try just to see if we can get this thing to fire off. So this is fuel mix. This is what I use in my chainsaws. 50-to-1 gasoline, 2-cycle engine oil. So I'm going to squirt maybe a little bit more than that straight into the cylinder. And in goes the plug. Okay. If it doesn't fire now, what the hell? We've got spark, we've got reasonable compression, we know there's fuel in there because we just put it in. Let's see what happens. This is a sketchy way to start something. Ooh, it fired. Alright, I think it's out of fuel. But it definitely fired and it was bucking and it was trying to go. So, awesome. What I need to do is get this fuel tank off, clean it out, put it back together, and see if it'll run. I was thinking getting this fuel tank off was going to be a big ordeal. Nope. No, they built things differently in these days. It's 4 bolts. Here, here, and then 2 more over here. I've got 3 of them out. This is the last one. Oh, there's the... Yeah, this is the only thing that's left. See, that goes down through it, disengages and engages the prop. But it also looks easy to take off. And there you go. So I think there might actually still be some fuel in this. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's why I didn't start cranking on it with the carburetor still attached. That doesn't even look like gasoline. It's like turpentine. You ever wonder why engines with old gasoline in them won't run at all? Well, this is why. This is the stuff that came out of that tank. Let's light it. Careful now. It won't burn. It's not gasoline anymore. And this is the where the fuel comes down and goes into the carburetor. I've got this all the way open and I cannot blow any air through it at all. It's all just coming right back at me. Nothing.
I've already tried unscrewing this fitting, but it's so tight that I was afraid I was going to break something.
I have got to get that apart. I've been looking at this thing and I assumed this was just a fitting that, you know, just screwed into the bottom of the tank. But when I feel up in there, there's a tube. I suspect it has small holes in it for the fuel to come through, so that's got to come out of there. So I'm going to try heat. Not too much heat because this tank's made of aluminum, which is a good thing because it doesn't rust. Hey, look at that. Heat does the job. Not what I was expecting. I think that is actually a screen. That is a completely clogged screen. So I'm going to soak both of these in carb cleaner overnight. Been a day soaking in carb cleaner. Definitely softened it up. Inside still looks a little rough. It even cleaned up the outside of the fitting. Oh yeah. That just came out of there. And there's still more junk in there. Ha! Of course the screen's removable. You just couldn't tell because it was glued in before with all the junk. I did some research online and it seemed to be the best at removing the varnish from old gas tanks was denatured alcohol, which I don't think will have any issues with the aluminum. You know, I don't want to put acid in there and start eating away my gas tank that's probably not replaceable. But this definitely needs more work. It's very heavy and there's a bunch of junk down here still. And I think I'm going to try denatured alcohol for this. Start out. Put that in there. And then I'm going to put a healthy amount in this tank.
While I was waiting on the alcohol to clean the inside of the tank, I decided to clean the outside too, also with alcohol.
Alcohol's taking that junk off of there, but I want to make sure it's not taking the decal off too. Well, that looks a little different. Essentially, that's before and that's after. Well, I'm actually thinking that alcohol is probably not a good thing for that decal. They sell new ones if I ever want to put it on there. I mean, this thing's in such bad shape that I'm not really too worried about it. Previously, I couldn't even get air to go through that. Alright, let's see how our alcohol looks now. Nice. Could not blow air through this before. I don't know if you can see it, but that looks much better already. So while I'm waiting for the fuel tank, I'm going to go ahead and clean this up. I've got this aerosol super clean degreaser. Never used it before. It actually says it's biodegradable. It's supposed to be pretty good stuff. I can see it all dissolving already. Hopefully not eating the paint off. Gonna need a little bit more, but hey, you know, I think that stuff worked pretty well. So there it is after one more application and wiping it down, and I'd say that looks pretty good. Oh, much better. I think I'm gonna call that good. So this is the screen for the gas tank. It's not actually a screen. It almost looks like little tiny particles glued together so that it makes tiny openings around them. I've seen stuff like this before, but I don't know how it's made. I also find it interesting they were making these in 1952, and I'm wondering if anyone out there knows how it's made. It's much cleaner, gas flows through it easily now, so I think we can put this back together. If you turn it over, it's going to fall out. How about we take some fuel-resistant gasket sealant, and we put a little bit around there and put it down in there. That's good. That's well affixed. So I'm going to put a little bit more of this gasket maker on the threads. I actually got hold of a PDF file of the manual for this, so I was able to read the high-speed needle setting is 3/4 of a turn out, which I've already set, and it actually has a low speed on it too, which is kind of interesting because it's not in the carburetor. So the low speed needle is this right here. So this turns. That is a rotary vane pump, they say, and it controls the idle speed. So it's separate from the carburetor. Thought that was kind of interesting. Hey, do you guys like variety? If you watch this channel at all, you know that I do, but the YouTube algorithm actually doesn't. I watch a lot of channels that do a lot of big variety of things, and they may put out a video that doesn't particularly interest me, and if I don't click on it, frequently when they put out their next video, YouTube doesn't show it to me because I didn't click on their last video. The algorithm's pretty simple. Even though you've subscribed to them and said, hey, I like this channel, if they show you a video, maybe two, and you don't click on them, they're not going to show you anymore. So what can you do? Well, you can click the bell. It basically is a mechanism that tells YouTube that you want to be notified of every video that this channel puts out. You know, the best thing you can do is just click on every video I make. No, I mean, I get it. You know, I do all sorts of things. I work on motors, do construction projects, I do machining, metal casting, woodworking, life hack videos, chainsaw videos. Not everyone's going to be interested in all those things. So just realize if you don't click on a video or two, YouTube is going to decide that you no longer want to see stuff from that channel and they're not going to show you anymore. Personally, I get bored with channels that do the same thing all the time. I like variety in my YouTube channels. I'm curious what you guys think. Do you like variety? Let's start a discussion down in the comments. I wish the algorithm was better at realizing that yes, you do like variety. What you like is maybe metal casting videos from Farmcraft so that when I put one out, it would put them in front of you, but from what I can tell, it doesn't seem to do that. I have a new rope on order for the starter mechanism. What I did is I pulled it out enough and then put a knot in it so that it won't retract to where it's just cable. You might assume that this is going to be the same mix that everything is nowadays, which is 50-to-1, 2-cycle oil to gasoline, and you would be wrong if you did that. If you read this label, 1/2 pint of oil to 1 gallon of gasoline. That actually comes out to 16-to-1. I did the lovely Imperial conversion calculations, and that comes out to 30 cc's of oil to 2 cups of gasoline. So that's 2 cups of fresh non-ethanol gasoline. This engine's never seen ethanol and no reason to start now. This is a 10 cc syringe, so I need 3 of these full of oil. 1, 2, and 3. It's good looking stuff. Alright, so I've got it rigged up with a pail underneath. Fill this up with water. I haven't checked the water pump, so the first thing I'm going to do when this thing starts, right here there's a little hole that should shoot a jet of water that indicates that the pump's working. If it's not flowing any water, I'm going to have to turn it off right away. Assuming it runs. For those of you not familiar with outboards, the water cools the engine and it will quickly overheat if you don't have a functioning water pump and circulation going through. And we're going to prime it. Oh, I can hear it. Okay, it primed. Place your bets. Does it run? Ooh. It's alive, sort of. So I've Bet you the low speed needs opened up. Closed. We open that a little bit more. I just went the other way with it. That helped. Maybe. Maybe just letting it sit for a minute helped. Pump's working. All right. Yes! It's alive! That is a beautiful thing. You know, and it's not even that loud. Idling for several minutes, it's running really well. Maybe a little fast, I'm going to adjust this low speed. Slow it down just a little. Oh, maybe a little too much. No. Yes. Okay, that's a little touchy. Alright, so I've got the carb back off, obviously. So I noticed when it was running there was fuel just pouring out of this hole, which that's just an open hole into the float chamber. Well, what that tells me is that the float is not working. Either the needle is not sealing or the cork is no longer floating. So the simplest way for me to see if the float is working or not is going to be to set it right